Hello and welcome to Unpacking Your DISC Assessments. So today is a day where you get to uncover information about your assessment and how it relates to your background and potential positions that you're looking to pursue. I welcome everybody to this broadcast, and for purpose and some housekeeping, we do have our attendees on listen-only mode. So if you have any additional questions, you see that in the question bar or the chat bar. But for the most part, my goal today is to have an opportunity for you to really take a look at the science of self, and once again, how it relates to your career journey. I am your host, Jean Filipiak. You can consider me your recruiting coach, and I am a talent behavior analyst. APA Solutions and Career Reform work together to help employees and job seekers find their ideal role and perform at an optimum level in their ideal role. So today's session is the first session towards understanding yourself and how it relates to the employment world. So starting from the beginning, as we look at understanding the science of self, as we look at unpacking and understanding your DISC, we'll be discussing and uncovering you incorporated and what that means, and then of course understanding what behaviors are and what motivators are, and why it's important to your career journey. So at Career Reform, we have a mindset, and this mindset was developed by employers, hiring authorities, who had shared with us through our expertise and through our research and through data that since about 2005, employers were looking at their employees, let alone job seekers, as if they did own a business, and that business is their background. So more than ever, employers were scrutinizing individuals' backgrounds more than they've ever had before. They were looking for a purpose in someone's resume or their background and how that purpose relates to their specific hiring need. So for our training purposes, we are having you really think with an open mind to start viewing your career as a business. And then these are the elements that you need to have in order to function like a normal business. So we're having and trying to teach you to think like an employer and take control of your professional development. At APA Solutions and Career Reform, we share that you own a business. The business you own is your background. And in that business, you have human resources, which is the science of self, operations, sales and marketing, technology, and finance. So in order for you to operate on your human resource department of You Incorporated, you have to understand who you are and where you're going. We found the assessment, which is the DISC assessment, one of the best vehicles to uncover the science of self, to really understand what are your strengths and how you do what you do. Because through research it's proven that if you align your behaviors plus your motivators to an occupation, you will have 93% job satisfaction. And that's our goal. Our goal is to wake up and go to work and be in a place where you feel is ideal, be in a place that's aligned with your passion, aligned with your goals, and that of the organization. We decided to arm you with an assessment called the DISC to give you information that you may come across in your interview process or job search process. We're arming you with the same assessment that employers might be measuring you against, and now you are able to see the results where normally you wouldn't see those results. We've seen employers have assessments in the front lines before you even submit your resume, and they're saying, hey, take this online assessment before you submit your resume, and then if you are matched to the role, then we'll move forward in the applicant process. So there's different ways that we're seeing our employers use these assessments, and for today's purposes, we're using it for the science of self to better understand how you can contribute to the employer landscape. So the DISC behavior is made up of 4 dimensions of behavior. The first one is dominance, and it's how you deal with problems and challenges. So the word dominance here, from a mindset standpoint, could be good or not so good. But for our training purposes, dominance today is defined as how you are able, or how it measures your ability to deal with problems and challenges. The next dimension is influence. Is how you are able to deal with people and get them to see your point of view. The next letter or dimension of behavior is S for steadiness. Is how you deal with your pace and the consistency of that pace. So in other words, it's how you respond to the pace of your environment. The C, the last dimension, is to compliance, and it's how you are able to deal with rules and regulations. It measures how you deal with rules and regulations. So in other words, it's how you respond to policies and procedures set forth by others. So now we go back to the D. The D, as it stands for dominance, is when you're thinking this, you have to, the main thing about this language is it's observable. So you can see this, it's body language. We'll be able to put people into an airport and you can see these primary dimensions from an observable standpoint, and then be able to identify what is that person's behavioral style and how can I better communicate with those individuals now that I know this information. When you're looking at what we're talking about here is the high levels of each dimension. So when you are looking at your graph, we are measuring it from 0 to 100%. And there's an energy line at that 50% mark. So when we're talking about pure Ds or high Ds, 50% to 100%, these are some of the characteristics that come up when you are observing this D. This D is going to be an individual who could be very egotistical, demanding, driven, ambitious, decisive, and then as soon as we get to that 50% mark, they're responsible. And then as soon as we cross over, now we're at 49 to 0, you're going to take on those opposite characteristics. A high D, the emotions that go with that, they're very quick to anger. And then a low D is slow to anger. So let's go back to the original definition. It's how you respond to problems and challenges. It's safe to say that if you're a high D, you're going to respond to those problems readily, eagerly. You're going to be the type of person is, give me that problem, I'm going to solve it, let me move on to that next problem. Many times high Ds are in a situation where they're solving problems, and they're solving problems when they don't even have to solve problems. They're just ready to solve it. So if you're ever talking to a high D and you need to bring up a situation to them and they quickly try to say, well, do this or do it this way or what about this? And you're just wanting that person just to listen, not to solve the problem because you're capable of solving that problem. You're just venting or sharing. But that D naturally is going to want to be very quick to solve that problem. And coming with those characteristics are they're quick to anger, they could be demanding, they could be driven, all those adjectives. And then opposite of that, 49 to 100% Ds, they're going to be very slow to anger. They're going to be able to solve problems and challenges. It's just that they may need the help of their other dimensions to solve those problems and challenges. So they can solve problems, it's just that you're not going to see them solving the problems like you would with a primary D. Tips in communicating with the high D is provide solutions, not opinions. Present facts logically. Now, because this is a listen-only webinar, I am going to move on to the I, but if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat bar and I'll address them. Now, when you're looking at the I stands for influence. If you recall, it's how you respond to your ability to influence people to see your point of view. The higher you are on the I, the more readily you're going to be able to get people to see your point of view. You're going to be able to be very optimistic, trusting, inspiring, magnetic, influential, enthusiastic, political. And then as soon as you cross over that energy line, or at the energy line, you're social. But as soon as you cross over, now you're at 49 to 0, you take on those opposite characteristics, and you might even be pessimistic. Now, an emotion of a high I is high trust, and an emotion of a low I is low trust. So now you have an individual that you could visibly see. They're going to, if they're very optimistic, very trusting, inspiring, because they have high trust, they're the type of people who are going to be very trusting of others and speak to you. And maybe, you know, if we're at that airport that I was talking about and the flight just got canceled, that high I is going to be like, no problem, let's go to the bar, let's have a few drinks. You know, or they may use their influence to get a free ticket, or use their influence and their enthusiasm to solve the problem, if you will, to get a new flight or etc. So that is the I when you're looking at the behavioral style of an I. Now the S stands for steadiness. This is, if you recall, how you respond to the pace of your environment. A high S is very consistent. They're very steady. They're very patient. They're going to want a slower pace of environment. They're going to prefer a slower pace of environment. These individuals are very patient, very harmonious. Now, depending on your degrees of S, right, so if you're a 70% to 100% S, these individuals are true blue project people. They like to finish a project from conception to completion. They probably can have 3 or 4 projects going on at a time. They're going to resist change in the beginning, and then once the change has a purpose and makes sense to them, they will probably move at a steady pace to make that change happen. Now, if you're 0 to 70% S, these individuals can have a lot more projects going on. And when I say a lot more, it's probably like 6, 7, or 8 projects. They're still finishing them from conception to completion. And then from there, they're still very steady, very harmonious. On a good day, you can't tell the day that they're happening. On the bad day, you can't tell the day that they're happening. These S's are your true team players. If you kind of put a visual on it, they might be a Gandhi or a Mother Teresa feel to them. They're about we and team as opposed to I. When communicating to a high S, you want to be very sincere, show genuine interest, and they're looking for stability. So you got to minimize the risks in a conversation or in a situation. So that's our S. Our C stands for compliance. If you recall, it's how you respond to policies and procedures set forth by others. The higher you are on the C, the more readily you're going to want and need those policies and procedures set forth by others. These C's are very, very detailed oriented. They're very conventional. They're dependent. They're analytical. They love data. They love high quality standards. Now, depending on the variations of that C, if you're 70% to 100% C, you're going to be, give me your plan and I will work your plan. They love structure. They love analytics, etc. If you're about a 50 to 70% C, you appreciate policies and procedures. You might be the one helping create those policies and procedures. You too have high quality standards, but you're ultimately going to pick and choose the importance of them depending on where you are in the situation. The emotions of a high C is high fear. So they're very worrisome. A lot of their decisions need to be based on data and research before they can pull the trigger. And then as soon as you cross over that energy line, they're 49 to 0% Cs. They're very independent. They're self-willed. They have no fear. They can shoot from the hip. They're making their decisions based on color and how fast it goes as opposed to data and research. Now, I just recalled I never gave you the low S, so I want to go back a little bit to the low S, because you have to recall the low S, oops, sorry about that, the low S, once you cross over the energy line, so a high S is very patient, very consistent, very steady. Now, a low S, on the other hand, they seek change. They are the true blue multitaskers. They can have 7, 8, 9, 10 projects going on at a time. But then really low S's, they may have a lot of projects, but are they finishing them? And do they have a trail of craziness behind them, if I use that term loosely? So low S's love change. They seek change. They're changing just for change's sake. They're just ready to move on to the next thing. So I wanted to make sure that I covered that. So that allows me to flip back to the C. So those are the 4 dimensions that make up an individual's behavioral style. So when you're looking at your report, you really have to kind of not only read the report as yourself, because it's natural for an individual to really go to the dark side and look at negatives of the report, before they looked at the positive. And when I say to you, this report is based on nature and nurture, so it's how you were born and how you were raised. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's really just an observable language of individuals that allows us to gain a self-awareness of self and an opportunity, now that we have this awareness, how is the best way should someone communicate to me, and what is the best way to communicate to an individual that has an opposite behavioral style. Then from there, what occupations are best suited for me as it relates to my style. And that's where the back of your report will share with you from A to Z what occupations based on your behaviors are suggested for you. So it's suggested based on how you responded to the report, and then they were able to get that information. So this gives you an opportunity to explore something. So the report will confirm you're in the right occupation. I love to do this, and here's some adjectives that best describes me. This is my basic needs. These are the environments that are best suited for me. And then you're able to take all the stuff that makes you unique and special and start applying these adjectives to what we call soft skills to put to your resume. Because a resume today is not just a chronological event of what you have done. It's more of what your past, present, and future tells the employer. So it's a story of what you've done, what you're looking to do, and how you can help that next employer. Many people get very stumped in, tell me about yourself, or what are your strengths, and this report allows you to pull some really good content to be able to share with your next future employer. So I know that there's probably going to be some questions about your individual assessments, but hopefully this just gives you the baseline that you need to allow yourself to read the assessment and then take it from there. So we talked a lot about behaviors of how someone does something. In the beginning of the presentation, I had said, if you take your behaviors plus your motivators and equate it to an occupation, that's where we have true blue 93% job satisfaction. So we have to look at our behaviors, but another looking lens is understanding someone's motivators of the why they do the things that they do. So your motivators really kind of set your actions into place. And you can change your behaviors based on what your motivators are. So we want to make sure that you have a thorough understanding that motivators are less changeable than behaviors, because it's where passion comes from. Two people with the same motivators can have different beliefs and different behavior styles, but yet still have the same things, or want the same things out of life, or value the same things out of life. We are, what we value positively or judge negatively could influence us on how we behave. So in order to understand your report, you first have to understand the 6 motivators, and then from the 6 motivators, we go into the 12 driving forces. Because just like behaviors, we're looking at the highs and the lows because that really shows a person's behavioral style. It's no different in motivators. We have to understand the highs of the motivators, and then what does the low or the opposite side of that motivator mean. So when you look at the next slide, you're looking at theoretical is seeing a love for knowledge, and then utilitarian is seeing a return on time, money, and energy. Aesthetic is seeing form and harmony within myself or within the world. Social is really truly valuing others, making an investment in all resources into helping others just to help others. And then individualistic is the need to achieve the highest position and yield the greatest power within that position. So having self-control over your own destiny. And then traditional is really seeking a meaning in life, so valuing a system in which you believe in. Now this system could be a religious system, it could be a political system, it could be an ethical system. It's just really saying, okay, this is the way it is. So those are the fundamental understanding of these motivators, and when you responded to your next part of your survey, you allowed us to uncover what truly motivates you to be able to then allow yourself to say, okay, if I want to help people, but I also want to make money, how does that wrap into an actual position? And that's why it's important to have a recruiting and or a career coach as part of your journey, because they can help extend the knowledge that you just don't have by just reading the report. So this is where we go through the driving forces. So the motivators in the middle there, and then you have the one end of the driving force of a motivator and then the other end. So individuals who were motivated by knowledge, we're now calling them intellectual. And the people who prefer to utilize their past experience and intuition, we're looking at them and being motivated by being instinctive. And then the next motivator, which is utilitarian, so if you're motivated by seeing a return on time, money, and investment, we are now calling them, because that's the high end, resourceful. And then the individuals who are more driven by completing tasks for the greater good, we are now looking at them as selfless. Here are the other two motivators continued, or driving forces continued. If you're a high social, you are now looking at being altruistic. And then the opposite of altruistic is the people who are driven to have a purpose on who they help. We call them, they're very intentional, and they have different priorities on the way they're being helpful. Individualistic people are driven by status, control over their own personal freedom. We're now calling that commanding. And then the opposite would be collaborative, people who are driven by being in the supporting role, contributing with little need for individual recognition. And then traditional. Oh, sorry, individualistic. So people are driven by recognition. Oh, we already said collaborative. Sorry about that. So now traditional. So people who are driven by structure, driven by traditional approaches, proven methods, defined system for living are categorized now from a motivator standpoint as structured. And then individuals who are more driven by new ideas and methods and opportunities fall outside the defined systems for living. We're now categorizing them as receptive. So when you're looking at your graphs, it's a lot of color, but you can see how you stack up. As the middle is the original 6 motivators, and then you can see your highs and your lows. It is proven too, if you're looking at managing people, isn't it better to understand what truly motivates them than lumping them in with a standard incentive plan? You know, someone who's not motivated by money maybe needs a different type of incentive plan that maybe instead of money, it's going to be tickets to Darien Lake so the family could go out if they're more about family and outside activities. So leaders can really utilize this to better understand a person's motivators, to better develop them and move them into action. So this is just another form to better understand the clusters and your situational driving forces. So I'm going to let you read over that. And then obviously now is the time to kind of really dive into those motivational and your employee overviews and how it relates to this first part of your coaching. Okay. How could this impact your work experience? It's important that not only do we have in this world, people are made up of many factors, and those factors are behaviors and motivators, your key competencies, then from there your EQ, your intellect, your experiences, your skills, and then your worldview and your self-view. So when a person comes into work, they're bringing the whole person to the party today. And employers now want to measure that whole person coming to work, because it's proven that if we're looking at the whole person coming to work, then we'll have optimum opportunities to be able to utilize that individual to align them to the vision, the mission, the behaviors, and the motivators of the company. So having this higher self-awareness will allow you to now look at the world from a different looking lens, and how you approach your job search, how you approach when you start a role, and how you approach when you're now working today. So what's going to be important is you change your thoughts, you can change your activities, and you can change your outcomes. So not only do we have these 9 factors that we're bringing to the party, but no 2 brains are alike. So through this process, we're going to be infusing some best brain-based practices to allow you to move more towards a place where you can make change happen. And so that concludes the DISC assessment portion. So your homework assignment is to review your assessment, review the handouts that are on the online course, or if we personally gave you some communication handouts, And you should be working on your self-debriefing guide. When you look at the self-debriefing guide, in the motivator section, they have documents that you can do your own debrief. On the CPI, it's really just starting from the bare nuts of the bare bones of what do you like about your last position, what didn't you like, what do you hope to see in your future employer, how do your behaviors and you're able to leverage this information to make a direct impact, and just do some self-reflection. And then from there, we are able to move on to the next part of the process, which is taking this information, really developing what your vision and your mission plan is for your next move, and then helping you devise your resume. That concludes it for today. And any questions, you know how to reach us at Career Reform at 716-626-0070. And then you can ask myself as your recruiting coach or any of our career reformers here to help you on your career journey. Thank you.